So good morning again and welcome. Thank you for staying with us. I am Tricia Sims, the Episcopal Delegate for the Family Life Commission. And we are happy that you're joining with us during this time for another episode of Health and Family Life Education, the Parenting Edition. And remember last week when we started, we talked about parents have the first responsibility for the education of their children. And today, before we invite our guests to join in, I just want to share with you the work of education. The work of education is about helping the person learn how to seek, to wonder, to sort through his or her desires. To educate, then, is to bring out, to give birth to the person. It is a new birth, not simply to life, but to personal life, taking on everything that comes with journeying with fullness. This second birth necessarily entails that the person embrace a calling that is greater than himself. That is a divine calling. And that divine calling means that God enters into the educational process with power and at the same time with gentleness. Education and grace walk in an essential synergy in which they mutually enrich and sustain each other. So parents, we have a huge responsibility, and that's just a little snippet of what education is. And so at this time, I would like to invite into the conversation Alicia Hoyt and Sharon Mangru. Alicia and Sharon, welcome into to today's session.
Thank you.
Right.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Tricia.
Right. So I shared that little bit about education and parents having that first responsibility. What are your thoughts based on what was shared before we jump right into?
We get to widen the lens so much when we classroom, when the child is wearing the uniform, when we understand education as the interaction, beginning even with the interaction between parent and child within the home, then we understand that everything we do helps to educate and form and prepare our child to sit down in the classroom. That's maybe the formal part of the thing, but it begins from way before. And as I always say, I'm so excited for us as parents to understand the power that we do have, and that it doesn't take a degree or going outside of ourselves. Our own experience begins to guide and inform the education of our children. And that's exciting.
Good. Thank you very much for sharing that, Alicia. Sharon?
Yeah, I think intuitively we know that each child is different and each child has their own personality. But very often we get maybe beaten into the group thinking that there is a model that our children must conform to. And it's something that we need to be always aware of, that each child is different, and that very drawing out of the child is a precious gift that we are given as parents, that ability to do that and to assist the school, because when we do send our children to school, sometimes we need to be reminding ourselves all the time and to be reminding the teacher that each child is different.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for sharing that. So we jump right into, where we left off last week. Last week, we were talking about the HFLE curriculum and the parents' responsibility in educating from the home. And we looked at those 4 thematic areas. Maybe Sharon, you can identify what those areas were for us again. Thank you.
Okay, so let me put them up on the screen. No matter how many times I do this, it always takes me a little. All right, there we go. Right. So there are 4 areas. We've got the self and interpersonal relationships, the nutrition, scroll down, sexuality and sexual health. We have the environment, and I missed out one, which is going to be eating and nutrition generally. Yeah, eating and fitness, right? Those are the 4 areas, and they're interrelated. So although we may want to be focusing on 2 of the areas this morning, we need to be aware that all 4 of those areas are interrelated because each child is living all of those areas every day.
I'm happy that you shared that, Sharon, because, many times we think we are just a physical being, but we are more than just a physical being. Maybe Alicia could share with us, as the psychologist on the team, who is the human person, before we go into a little more on this.
We have so many aspects to who we are as a human person. And you're right, it's easy to get caught up simply in the physical because that's what we feel. Yeah. But there is a spiritual element to us. We're part of something bigger. We came from somewhere and we're going somewhere. Whatever your religious beliefs, that part is true. So we are spiritual beings. A lot of who we are happens in the social interaction. So it's not just our bodies that need to be fed. We develop who we are, and a lot of our brain development, the more I'm reading, it's more exciting. A lot of our human brain development happens in interaction with others. So there are interactional or social aspects of ourselves. And then the emotional aspects, how we feel about what's happening around us. Our feelings motivate how we act, how we relate, and how we communicate with others. So the physical body is the part that we can see and touch, but our emotions, our perceptions of the world, how we relate with other people, how we understand our connection to what is bigger around us are all parts of who we are as well.
Thank you for sharing that. So I'm happy that you talked about our emotions, because that as you know, the curriculum has these 4 thematic areas, as Sharon just identified there for us. And we look at different levels that it happens at the school. We're going to place some emphasis in before level 1. Level 1 is from first year to second year, isn't it, Sharon?
Level 1, infants 1 and 2, yes.
Infants 1 and 2. But even before we go to infants 1 and 2, there are some things that parents should be doing at home in these 4 areas that can help prepare the child for school. So developmentally, Alicia, what is happening with a child prior to going to school? Maybe you could share with us a little bit. Maybe Sharon, you can take down the screen a little bit, the sharing, and I'll put it back up very shortly. Thank you.
Right. I have no slides to share, just my lovely face.
Good, that's good.
The more we're discovering and the more we're understanding is that much of the brain development for us as human beings takes place after birth. It's the reason that when we are babies, we're so fragile, we're so dependent on carers and so unable to take care of ourselves. By contrast, if you think of a baby horse, when it's born, it can run on the first day. We don't do that. It's because a lot of our brain development happens outside of the womb after birth. And so it starts to clue in how very, very important early care is for the development of the human person. A large percentage, I can't remember my numbers, of brain development is taking place outside of the womb and in relationship. And so one of the things that we've come to understand is the value of what we call attunement. This comes in a lot with the contact, the physical contact. We spoke about the physical body. The physical contact, skin-to-skin contact, some of us know it as, between the child and the caregiver. I'm using the broader term than parent because in some instances, it may be a nurse, it may be a grandparent. So we don't want to feel restricted. Ideally, of course, it's a mother or a parent, yeah? But that skin-to-skin contact between newborn and parent starts to form and develop different aspects of the child's brain. And it's just, I keep using the word exciting. It's just exciting for me. We can teach our children's bodies to regulate itself. So when we use our body, holding them, we're teaching their bodies to regulate its nervous system. We're teaching our children to regulate their emotions. There is a electromagnetic field that gets formed between parent and child when they're in close contact like that for long periods of time. And the child learns to soothe from the parent. A baby can't soothe itself. So the concept of leaving the child to cry it out doesn't work, because the child needs to be soothed by us. And so we learn to their nervous system gets regulated, their emotions get regulated, and their ability to respond to stress gets regulated when we, the calm parent, is in contact with the child. Trisha, you gotta stop me sometimes, because when I start on this topic, I could go down the road, but it lends great credence to some of the things we've known that are important. Now, this is not to guilt any mother who didn't do these things, yeah? But the breastfeeding, the holding of the baby in the baby carrier or in the wrap, the sleeping together, the cuddling. We're not about guilting parents. It's pointless in doing that. But it lends greater credence to those practices where your young ones are in contact with you. You are helping their nervous system and their brain development. So by the time this child gets to school and hits, first year at age 5, you can have a calm child who knows how to soothe, or you can have a child who's frenetic and on edge and creating chaos in their environment. That is how big and important parenting is in the 0 to 5 years. I'll stop there.
Good. Thank you very much for sharing that. But that's a good, good place to start in terms of, self-soothing, because when children go to school, they have to learn to
Yes.
Their emotions, how they regulate their emotions.
Yes.
But it doesn't just start in school. It starts in the home, prior. So they're coming into school knowing how to control themselves, or have an ability to identify or what is happening to them. I think that's a good place to start. Now, Sharon, you get the 5, you get them in school now that they're 5 years. So Alicia has given us just a little snippet as to what we should be doing at home. Now, in school, when the children come in first year and we start with that curriculum, let's look at that and see what parents can be doing at home and how it works with the curriculum.
So as they start at 5, I remember there are some children who would have started school earlier. We don't call it school, you call it preschool. And the preschool people are very careful. It is not a school, right? And they can talk a lot about why that is. Right. But we start with the child, again, coming to know themselves. And as Alicia has pointed out, this would have started at home. It has to have started at home. But we'll continue this development at school, where the child now has to interact with others. But if there's that sense of self that is missing, the interaction with others will not happen in a positive way. And so the teacher in those early 2 years, you're not looking at teaching content. You're not looking so much at teaching maths and reading and so on. And there's been damage done to children where that happens, where the focus is on that. Yes. But you're looking on developing the child. So you're looking at who is this child? What is this child like? What does this child prefer? What does this child not like? What triggers are there for this child that will trigger good behavior versus behavior that maybe is not compatible with a social being, and so on. Teaching the child to respect themselves, to respect others. So even then you start teaching things like good touch, bad touch, and so on, right? Because you're looking at the body. How do you respect self? You're looking at the tantrums that they may throw if they have not learned how to soothe themselves. And how do you manage that? And how do you gently teach a child? And then, of course, there will be talk about the family and the relationships, not just in school and the family. Parents, this is where the children, not that the teacher will ask for it, but this is where the children talk about what is going on in the family. And you hear a lot, sometimes much more than you want to hear, about what is going on in the family. So those are all the areas. There will be conflict, of course, with the children. And it is inevitable. You have put a group of 5-year-olds together. They have to play with play together. They've got to use crayons and so on together. So they do learn how to manage that. And then even at 5, because before they get into school, they are learning the technology already. And so this is something, and this curriculum is old. As I said, this is before 2012. But even then, there was the acknowledgement that we needed to introduce the concept with the children. And then the whole thing about who is the family? And we look at the family structure, whatever your family structure is like, you know, the loyalty. And then even at that age, you want to be looking at the children who may have some kind of special need, not just for learning, but maybe a special need for being. So that there are classrooms in which there would be children who may have issues with sight, with hearing, or maybe generally with movement, and so on. So these would be the self. Today, we're not looking so much at the eating and so on, but that is an area that is touched on in the school. And of course, because there is school feeding available, it is something that they are able to put into practice what they're learning. But the other area in which we have great interest now would be the area of sexuality and sexual health, which of course does not start with the sex organs, right? Because sexuality is bigger than the sex organs. And so we're looking at how are the children going to develop and maintain their friendships. And, you know, personal hygiene is an area that many teachers have to struggle with the students in school in teaching it. You wouldn't think that as much work has to be done, but it is something that parents need to pay attention to and are often not as aware as they should be. Now, most schools, we are at the stage here where the children are now learning to control themselves. And so there are going to be accidents in school. And so there is a great opportunity for teaching how to take care of self and how to take care of their personal hygiene, even in spite of the fact that they're not in full control of their bodies as yet.
So you shared a lot with us there in terms of the curriculum, and maybe I can bring Alicia in here. One thing, you know, I want to point out, you talked about sexuality is not just about genitals, and maybe Alicia, you can share what sexuality is really, you know, for the parents of the little ones here, you know, how can we teach us about sexuality to this young age group?
You know, what one term I learned back in the day, sexuality is all of me. It's all of who I am. It's how I relate to people. You know, who I have sex with and why and when happens within the context of relationship, of my understanding of right and wrong, and my understanding of my purpose. And so, yeah, it can't just be the sex act that we're talking about. And so I wonder if parents are starting to realize that we're not talking about how and when to have the talk. We haven't gone into that at all. It's way bigger than the one talk and at which age and what to say, which freaks us out as parents completely. But it's about who I'm raising this person to be. And so when we're talking about sexuality, we're talking about the uniqueness of the individual, the gift that God has created this person to be. Sharon talked about, you know, not being totally in control of your bodily functions, and a little one could come up with a lot of shame and embarrassment. I, as a parent, can be teaching my child that learning to master your body and you know, whether it's potty training, whether it's holding a cup without spilling, all of that, I can celebrate the gift that God has given you of being able to do these things and being able to do these things well. So what I'm doing with my child is teaching them that their body, their minds, who they are as an individual is a gift, and it's a gift to be celebrated and regarded and respected. And if I'm a gift, then the other person is a gift as well, to be respected and regarded and celebrated. And what I want to teach my child is not just right and wrong, but love. The reason for doing things a certain way is because of love. So I want to give myself to you in love at the right time and in the right way. And I'm going to respect that of you as well. By the time we teach that larger context, when I have sex and who I have sex with will make sense. within that context. Yeah.
Thank you. I like how you share that because, in reading Beyond the Birds and the Bees, it says that sexuality is the process by which one person learns to communicate the
Yes.
intimate core of himself to another. A big part of that is learning the beginning steps of respecting my body and learning basic trust. So
Very true.
remember, we in that early age there, how important is trust in relationships? How important is trust? Alicia, maybe I'll ask you first and then I'll go to Sharon.
That's my question, right?
Yes.
Again, I could spend my whole time in the 0 to 5 before they even get to Sharon in primary school, because a lot happens there. If we go all the way back to Erickson's stages of development, the very first stage from 0 to about 18 months is where a child develops trust versus mistrust. Again, I'm very careful that we're not criticizing or judging parents for what they've done. Yeah, a lot of parents are listening and going, oh gosh, I messed it up. But by how I respond to an infant, so the child is crying in the crib or crying on the bed, and my grandmother tells me, let them cry it out, they will learn to be independent. A newborn, the majority of whose brain development hasn't happened yet, can't teach themselves independence. They will learn independence after they've learned that I can trust this person to come when I have a need. When I cry, someone comes and checks on me. When I feel this dampness around my bottom, I don't even know what my bottom is, somebody comes and relieves that distress. When I speak up, somebody comes. The world is a place where someone will help with my needs. Someone will take care of me. The world is a safe place. And so from that first year of life is where a child can learn trust. If I'm left unattended or I'm attended to irregularly or even on a schedule when people think I should be attended to, I grow with a sense of anxiety and discomfort that I don't know when this discomfort will end. I don't know when my need will get met. A child hits life with that basic trust built in or distrust built in from very, very early in first year of life.
Thank you, Alicia, for sharing that. Now, Sharon, in the school, would you like to bring it from the school perspective now?
So from this school, we have a child coming in either very trusting or mistrustful. And there is another chance because here is a teacher developing a relationship. And I think, an exercise that sometimes I ask people to do is to think about your experience at school, adult people, and think about something that was very good and something that isn't good. Very often when they think about something that isn't good, it's a situation in which they think justice was not done. Justice was not done to them. And this is the experience of being able either to trust the teacher or not trust the teacher. And so it is very important that teachers be aware of this. But I think also that link between school and home and what is happening in school somehow being connected to what happens at home. For many of our children, there's a disconnect. But I think children, our brains are marvelous because some children learn to partition it and they behave one way in school and their behavior at home may be different. But for us as parents, and teachers are parents as well, for us who are parents, one way that we can make that connection is through communication with the parents. And again, for parents to be aware that if the teacher calls for you to come to school, it should not be a traumatic experience, There should be a comfortable relationship between parents and teacher, and with the understanding that we are working together, we're partners in this growing the child, and we're doing it together. And I think there's a great gift that we have as teachers to stand in. We use the term in education a lot in loco parentis, to stand in for the parent. The one thing I'd like to say, Tricia, is just to remember that the teacher is standing in for the parent and not the parent. And so the parent has to be careful not to give up their role as parent totally to the teacher.
I'm happy that you share that, Sharon, maybe Alicia, you can jump in here, and share a little bit about, why parents may be giving up that role and how can we equip and empower parents to continue to take up that role. Alicia?
And I think I said it last time, I'm happy to be a broken record and say the same things over and over. That works fine for me because it's so important and so powerful. I think a lot of us as adults, they calling us parents, they slap that label on us because we had a baby. And there was the idea that automatically we'd know how to relate as an adult. But for a lot of us, when we go back into the school physically, like Sharon says, teacher calls and says, I need you to come in. A lot of us get thrown back to our childhood experience. And if our childhood experience wasn't a positive one with school, we come in a lot of times carrying that dynamic. So we come in defensive, or we come in submissive, or we come in however we used to be. Or maybe we've determined that my child not going through the same thing. And before poor Miss Mangro says a word about my child, I'm already on the defensive because I'm expecting conflict or a fight. So a lot of us as adults are carrying our pain from our own childhood. And part of our work is to address that and acknowledge that and process our pain and understand how it's influencing what we do now. It's going to be really powerful when I come into this school and my child can see me handling with calm and with grace whatever comes up, and the child understands, okay, these two powerful people in my life are on the same page. Now, if the two all are ganging up on the child to abuse and to torment, well, poor child. But if the parent and the teacher are really genuinely trying to work things out together, that child can experience a great sense of relief and a great sense of confidence.
Thanks for sharing that. Now, in reading, in terms of building up that confidence, Alicia, one of the things in Beyond the Birds and the Bees, it talks about, and we really want to encourage our parents to get a copy of this book, and we'll put it in the chat.
Yes.
It talks about 7 principles for having healthy, age-appropriate conversations with your children, and it's represented by that acronym RESPECT. And I really appreciated, what that respect is. Are you able to pull that up on your screen, Alicia?
I actually am, and I'm quite impressed with myself for being able to do that.
Oh, that's very good. I didn't be able to share your screen with us.
Yes, give me a second. I'm so proud of myself this morning for being organized.
So we have 5 more minutes in the show. And, I want us to talk a little bit about those 7 principles. Yes, you have it there on the right. Maybe you can walk us through those 7 principles, Alicia.
All right. So respect, and it's a beautiful acronym. 7 ways to talk the talk. Yeah. So when you are engaging with your child around issues that may have to do with sexuality or any questions that they have coming up, we need to realize what your child needs to know and when. And so there's a concept of gradualism in teaching about sexuality. As the issues come up for your particular child, you respond to it. What does my child need to know at 1 versus 3 versus 5 in this situation versus another? Elicit your child's thoughts, attitudes, and feelings. So many times we tell and we talk, but it's important to ask a question. You're watching a TV show with them or something comes across their video game. So what is that? What happened there? I don't understand. Explain it to me and hear from your child what they think or feel. Was that an okay thing, or what do you think? And very young, can give you their feedback. You get to know what they're thinking, and you get to correct misconceptions. Speak the truth. There's no need to make up or pretend. In age-appropriate language, to the extent that the child needs in the moment, we need to find ways to speak the truth about what they're asking. P, present a positive attitude towards sex. This is the dignity of the human person, the fact that God created us good and he loves us. And we should be happy about what he has given us and who we are, and the sense of right and wrong, and the sense of love being willing the good of the other. That's the context in which we're talking about what happens with our bodies. E, expect to talk about your own struggles when and to the degree it is appropriate. And so here again, we need to do our work as to our history and our past and our pains, and get to a place that we can be ready to say part of it when it's time to share with our child. It's going to be so powerful. C, control your temper and the temptation to lecture. I need to practice calm. I need to practice the pause so that I can breathe and think before I respond to my child and help them regulate themselves as well. T, teach your child what the gift of the body is for. Self-donative love is that who I am is a gift to another person. I am gift, and I come first to regard and honor and respect myself so that I can help and share and make a difference in the lives of those around me. So that's the acronym RESPECT. I think I covered it in less than 5 minutes, hopefully.
Thank you very much. You did. So as we bring today's session to a close, maybe I would invite Sharon to give us some closing comments, and then you, Alicia, and then we'll tie things up. Sharon?
I think just to remember that there is a partnership between school and home, and that as parents, we need to work on developing that partnership so that it is a healthy one, because that is what is going to benefit our children most. And in teaching, just by being, everything that we do, the children learn everything. They learn it nonstop. They never stop. And so that relationship is going to be very important for them.
Thank you, Sharon. Alicia, any closing comments about today?
When we talk about the parent modeling, we're not talking about the parent being an ideal. We're talking about you, by lived example, guiding and teaching your child. Education doesn't start when they put on uniform and go in the classroom. It starts from birth, when the child learns to trust, when the child learns to have a sense of pride and autonomy in who they are, who God has created them to be. And when the child learns that I can have impact in the world rather than being ashamed or feeling doubtful about who I am and what I can do. That starts long before the classroom, and we need to take back up our roles with joy for who we are.
Well said, beautifully shared there. And as we began, parents are the first educators of their children. Remember, to educate is to help the person to learn how to seek, how to wonder, how to sort through his or her desires. It's about God entering into the educational process, or we inviting him in, because God ain't just gonna barge in. We inviting him into the educational process with power and at the same time with gentleness. Education and grace walk in an essential synergy in which they mutually enrich and sustain each other. Parents, look out for, we're going to be offering some parenting programs. Where do babies come from? When your 3-year-old asks you, we are going there in August with some parenting programs. If you are having those conversations or your children are raising those questions, those are great questions. And it's time for us to start answering them in truth and in love. Don't be afraid. We are here to support you and to provide you with the tools that you need to, parent with grace. We thank you for viewing today's session, and we thank Sharon Mangrul, CEO of the Catholic Education Board of Management. We thank Alicia for joining us, Masters in Clinical Psychology. They will be back with us sometime in the very near future, but next week we're going to have two new guests with us, joining us as we continue going on with that RESPECT acronym and finding out, those nitty-gritty questions, how we can respond to them, because that's our responsibility. We thank you for viewing. Please remember to like and share and comment, and we look forward to you tuning in with us next time. Happy Feast of St. Anne and Joachim to all married couples, to all grandparents. Yeah. Remember, God is with us. He loves us. Take care, and we see you next time. God bless you.